In this film, we're going to reassemble a front caliper for a DeTomaso Pantera. This is the caliper assembly. This happens to come from the driver's side. You will note that it has 4 pistons, 2 larger and 2 smaller. The housing is actually 2 halves. The housing can be broken into 2 halves by the removal of these 4 bolts. That, however, is not recommended, as there are O-rings between the 2 halves that are difficult to source. So, how does one actually get into these bores and clean them if necessary? In my case, what I used was a Dremel tool with this attachment that allowed me to put a piece of 3M cloth on it, which then allowed me to get into the bore area and clean the bores sufficiently to make them nice and shiny, and then polish them up by hand with a cloth. So these have all been cleaned. It also assisted in the cleaning of the pistons, which was also very critical. So at this time, with the caliper clean, the pistons now will easily mate inside, and we can reassemble. One of the first things that I want to do is I want to insert new speed bleeders. I was able to source these from Napa. The proper size, proper part number for the Pantera is 675-1569. In order to prep the hole where these are going to go, I used another tool available for my Dremel, which has this screw top on it. Again, taking a piece of 3M pad, I was able to screw that on, and then again using the Dremel, press that into the hole for the bleeder, and had just enough room to clean the hole rather nicely, actually. So at this point we are ready for the speed bleeders. The speed bleeders are nice in that they have an internal check valve. So when you crack the bleeder open so that fluid passes the tip and is allowed to go into this hole, there's a check valve in here. When pressure is applied, fluid flows. When pressure is released, a spring pushes the check ball back and closes the connection. This allows easy bleeding of the Pantera brake system, or of any brake system for that matter, by one person without the use of another person and the old pump, stop, hold, and that sort of thing. So we are going to put these bleeders in. I'm going to go ahead and snug them against their stops for now, just using light pressure. I don't want to crank them on. I don't want to damage the bleeder or the seat any more than is necessary or has been done already in the past. That is quite snug. The old bleeders that were pulled out of these particular calipers, you can see appear quite encrusted, glazed, rusty, and these in fact had a Teflon tape put on them to prevent leakage. So I can only imagine at some point the owner didn't realize how encrusted the bleeders were and they were not closing properly, so they decided to use tape. With the bleeders installed, we're going to turn our focus to the pistons. Again, we have several pieces that are used in this assembly. We have a large ring and dust shield for the large piston. There is a large piston seal which goes into the bore. For the smaller piston, we have the ring and the dust shield and another piston bore seal. these are the objects that are going to go into the piston. We will only do one side at a time. Using a bit of fresh, clean brake fluid, we will coat the inside of the bore. It provides lubrication and it also begins protecting the bore. It will assist in the insertion of the seal. Now, I will start with the smaller seal. I lubricate it and I go to place it in the groove in the piston. We want to make sure that there are no twists in the seal. You should be able to run your finger around the edge and feel a constant. Because there is a slot in the back of the caliper, it's also used to view this side of the seal. The larger seal, in the last caliper I did rebuild. The larger seal seemed to be too large. However, it was really just a matter of getting the seal oriented properly and placed into the bore. It is a little bit difficult, a little bit more tricky I should say, because it is a little bit larger. But again, we just need to make sure that the seal does not have any twists in it. Once that has been accomplished, we are ready for the pistons. Again, I like to lubricate slightly. We put in, using a slight twisting motion as possible. We want to try and slide the piston past the seal. The important thing is not to force too hard, otherwise we may end up with a torn seal. Alright, with the piston in place, I do want to raise it just a bit so that this edge here on the piston is even with the edge of the bore here. That will help facilitate the installation of the dust shield. Taking the larger piston, we will lubricate it again with clean brake fluid. And then we will again, trying to use a slight twisting motion, attempt to put it in the bore. There. Now, for just a little cleanup of the excess fluid, and the installation of the dust shields. Right. Now with all four pistons installed, we only have a couple more things to do. One is our brake fluid connection here.
Yes.
That's my son Sam in the background helping me.
Yeah.
Earlier, I had placed a scribe mark along here to indicate which direction this particular caliper had this connection oriented, and it is this direction here. I will tighten this further when we get it onto the car to make sure that our entire hose connection and everything is out of the way of anything that might strike it. This is the brake pad spring, which really just sits down in the top of the caliper, such as that. Now for my purpose, I'm using Porterfield racing brake pads. These are R4S compound. These are considered to be some of the better pads that you can actually run on your Pantera if doing both street and racetrack driving. Now, as with all racing compound pads, they need to be inspected after any hard race course work to make sure that there's still sufficient pad left on the street to get home. The pads simply insert against some slight spring pressure. And against the pistons. Yes, it helps to have it oriented properly. And there we have a fully assembled and ready to go back on the car brake caliper assembly. Very quickly, we put in the speed bleeders. There's an O-ring in each bore. Then the piston goes in. There's a dust shield and then a retaining ring for the dust shield. We have the brake pad spring, we have the two brake pads, and we have the brake hose connection. And that is rebuilding the stock Girling calipers for the DeTomaso Pantera.